Probably most of you know that a little over a year ago, this began, I thought, a couple of years ago, but a year ago, I convinced her we need to go to the doctor to see what was going on. She didn't realize it, but she was not remembering things. We went to her doctor, and the doctor didn't talk long and sat down and said, "Sit down there." We sat down, and she said, told us what she thought it was, and she said, "Marjorie, probably within the next 2 months, you won't even know who Burl is. And probably within the next 6 months, you'll be dead." That was over a year ago. Well, her doctor got COVID, and she couldn't see anyone for a while because it was serious. And they called and said, we talked to another doctor, and he said he would take Marjorie. So we went to that doctor. He checked everything over. Her first doctor didn't do any testing, but this doctor did quite a lot of testing. We went again, and he said, "I won't tell you what I think you have as your problem, but I want you to go see a specialist." And they took several professional tests, and then she called us and said, "I want her to take a sleep test, of all things." And in that sleep test, they found that the brain cells were dying, and also she was losing her short-term memory. Now, I thought those two went together, but they don't, because now the specialist has her on a very strong medicine and thinks maybe they've stopped the brain cells from dying. But the other medicine she's taking, which is a patch that puts on her shoulder every day, and they just doubled that strength. But the last time we went, the doctor said, "We think we've got the brain cells stopped dying, but she's still losing her short-term memory." They double the medicine, and once in a while she gets sick, probably from that medicine, but they're not sure. And today she's not here because of it. We will come back again soon and hear your pastor when we can come and she can enjoy being here and seeing all of you. But she could talk to you right now, and she would lean over and ask me your name, and I'd tell her. And when we walked out of the church, she'd say, "Now, who was that?" She remembers things about you. And when she sees you, she remembers you. But when she gets away from you, the name totally gets away from her. So you remember Marge in prayer. She'd love to be here if she could be. When we came here a number of years ago, we fell in love with this congregation very quick. There were 16 here the first Sunday we were here. And I had courage or whatever to say, "I'm willing to come if you're willing to commit yourself to work, and we'll build the church." And every one of those 16 people raised their hand, and they proved to me that they meant it by what they did in the next few months and the next few years, culminating in this building, beautiful building we're in this morning. We didn't do it. The people in the church didn't do it. But it was in the plan of God. He never wants a church to close. And within this one, he knew that your ministry wasn't finished in this community. Now, to show you how nice the people were to us when we came, I thought you'd like to see this. But we had an anniversary, and here's what this card says. "In honor of your anniversary, this card guarantees you a free meal at any fine restaurant you want to go to. So we opened it and thought, my, isn't that nice of them? Well, my wife doesn't like roaches. So we opened the card and it said, number 1, detach the cockroach. And we did. Number 2, place it on a plate before the bill arrives in that special restaurant. Number 3, scream like crazy, and you will get whatever you want to eat. Have a great anniversary, Bob and Betty Cravens. So we have kept that as a reminder how nice this church was to us when we came. Thank you, Aaron. We have been good friends since, I think I got acquainted with you the day after you moved in. We appreciate you. I want to read this morning from the 124th. I didn't write either. Now you understand, at my age, you don't do things right very often. At least I don't. The 24th Psalm, the first 4 verses. The earth is the Lord's and all its fullness. That reminds me, everything is for me. And then it says, the world and those who dwell within. Those who dwell within includes me. For he has founded upon the seas and established it upon the waters. Who may ascend unto the hills of the Lord, or who may stand in his holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart. Those are tremendous words. And they have been for me, the older I've gotten across the years, to realize that I belong to God. No matter what I do with my life, he created me. And he desired to have fellowship with me. And today, Marge and I together, every morning we sit on our porch. It's enclosed in glass. We have a fireplace because she wouldn't let me have a fireplace in the house. And we discuss things. You and I are aware of the fact that there's always something special when a church celebrates. And then I add to that and has a meal. It is a time when the church reflects upon its past, upon its joys, and on its sorrows. Those who have effectively served, and those who went through its doors without making a deep commitment to the Lord Jesus Christ. For hundreds who went through the doors of this church over its 68 years. It took hundreds dedicated who were willing to share and sacrifice and give of their lives to celebrate the faithfulness of Christ here this morning. Today, you have heaped an honor upon Marge and I. I don't know why, but you did. But we greatly appreciate that honor. You have honored us in the way you have. But we all know that we are here today to celebrate the great love that God has shown to us. We celebrate you, the people of this church, because of the sacrifices that you have made. In the Old Testament, they were building the temple. It said the people had a mind to work. We celebrate you because of your work in this community, your work in this church. And for the years that I know of the work that you were willing to do to help in building the kingdom here in this community. I mentioned a moment ago that there were 16 present for the first time we met. And when I said, I'm willing to come back, I'm retired so I don't have to do anything. I'm willing to come back if you're willing to give yourselves to the work of the kingdom when you have time to build the kingdom here in Robinson. And everyone who was present raised their hand. You had a mind to work. You started bringing people, and the church began to grow. When we began thinking and discussing and talking about building a new sanctuary, it was again one of those times when we had four groups together and we discussed what we wanted, and in each instance, there was 100% desirous of building the new sanctuary. You had a mind to work. And again, I say you started bringing people. We put the fountain, I wanted to say shower, we put the fountain in the foyer at that time, and we said it is good. But when we advance, when the church advances, when we advance as individuals, there are changes that we feel need to be made for the good of all. And you put this very nice welcome center out here in the sanctuary. Everyone can come in and find someone there to greet them, to enjoy those moments out there with whatever you have. I didn't see any coffee there this morning, Pastor Aaron, but I was told to get a cup of that coffee. So I'm going to do that in a little bit. When Marge and I liked the fountain so well, we got one that had, pedestals on it, and it stands about that high, right out our back door. And every time we go out and sit on the swing in that room, we look out and that fountain is there with the water flowing. And you know what it does for us? Every time we sit in that swing and look at that fountain, memories pop up in our mind of things that have happened not only here, but happened in our lives, and it gives Marge and I something to talk about. It gives memories of watching Norris Adams crawling around in the rafters, stringing wire to put the sound system in, and that we knew that was a chore. We see Dave and Terry and Charles and so many others around the church constantly working with the contractor to help bring this church about. We remember seeing all the people out in front, so both men and some women, out in front taking the stone off the front of the old sanctuary so the contractor could put it on the new sanctuary to tie everything together. We remember the ladies, mainly the ladies, who came in and cleaned and decorated and do all the things they could to help the sanctuary be what it is. We remember the memories, We remember the times when Ken and Rita came. Rita came the first time, and I asked about her husband and said, oh, he won't come. He sits out in the lawn on Sunday morning and reads the paper and drinks coffee. The next Sunday, she was so excited about the church, she brought him with her next Sunday, and they become a vital part of the church. I remember the Tracys. When Kent and his family came, we discovered that we were relatives. When one of the other Tracys came and we left here, Darla was going to come and preach for me. In fact, I even put her name in the bulletin her picture in the newsletter and her name in the bulletin one Sunday. And she got there and wouldn't preach for us. You remember all those kind of things, don't you? I remember the tragedy that Monty's family went through when the children died and when Jenny died. I remember the day we came in from the old sanctuary singing praises to God. 143 came together to worship. I remember the unity of those times. And I sense the unity that's still here in the midst of a pandemic, when people come to worship and when people come and gather together in the foyer or in the sanctuary and greet one another with, as the word says, a holy kiss. I remember the time that Wilford Pierce, the contractor, he was out here and I was here doing something. He called me over to him and he said, Burl, a neighbor right down the street came over. She looked at what we were doing and said, it's going to be a beautiful sanctuary. And then she said, but I'd hate to have the debt. Wilford said, I let her go with that. I didn't tell her when the church was finished it was going to be debt-free. That was his thing about it. Because you, the people of God in unity, have had a mind to work for the last 68 years. This church is still here in Robinson. Its witnesses still reaching out and saying to people, Jesus Christ is the hope of the world. And even what's going on in our country, and I look at the economic disaster we find ourselves in, and I look at all the pictures on TV that indicated we're heading toward a third world country. I remember that God is still supreme and God is still in control. Amen. And you and I who are here this morning know that. And we know that our God is omnipotent, that all things are possible with him. We all remember, we weren't there then, but we remember our church was founded in 1860. And that new church, this church, when it was founded by a group of people, had a reason to be here, to glorify God, to live in the image of God in preparation for spending eternity with God, to take to heaven as many people as we can. That's all a part of the joy that is ours. That's the hope that Foy Parker and those who organized this church had. That was the desire of the church 68 years ago, and that continues to be the desire of the church today. The scriptures like Psalms 24, Psalm 139, it says, you were wonderfully made. Or the Old Testament, where they were building the temple, and it says that people had a mind to work. It reminds us of who we are and our accountability one day as we go back to God. Isn't it great? Everything we have, everything we owe to God. The earth is the Lord's and all of its fullness, the world and all who dwell therein. God is continuing to work the master plan that he might give to you and me all the desires of our heart and all the things that he has in store for us. Marge and I were looking at the picture books this week as we sat in the swing one morning. And I got to thinking that if we could this morning, we'd take the cross down for a moment, not for long. We'd take the screen down, we'd get out our spiritual paint brushes, and we begin to paint a tapestry that is up here that we can't see. And we'd look at it and we'd see Foy Parker and all those that had a hand in building this church. They would be standing there. We would look up there and we would see the people who have died, the pastors who who went through this church, and some have died, but we think about Ed Bennett, and we think about, I lost the name that I was going to mention, Tom Brown and Diane Brown. I know that Tom is dead. I don't know if Diane is, but I know that the Bennetts are in heaven today. Their pictures would be there, wouldn't they? And all of those in this church who have died and gone to be with the Lord would be up there in that picture in the tapestry, that our spiritual tapestry that we're painting. Every day of our lives, it's being painted. And we look up there and we see Bob and Betty Cravens. We see your friend and mine, and one that I treasure was Shirley Bowman, Jim Ernst, Bob and Maureen Michaels, Jenny Tracy, and the list goes on. But in that spiritual tapestry, because they gave their lives to God, their picture would be there. And those who continue to go on to be with the Lord, they would end up on that tapestry. And over here would be a place reserved for you when you live this world. Beautiful, isn't it? Beautiful. That's God's tapestry. That's a picture of the eternal world. That's a picture of what God has in store for all of us. Think of that. It's ours to enjoy. And when Marge and I look on that, sit in that swing and look at that fountain, we think of some of those people that we knew that died while we were here. And we rejoice that one day we can be with them. I've said to people across the years, we haven't had much time to stop and talk. But one of these days when we get in the eternal world, maybe God will give us the time to sit down along the streams of life, of God's life, and talk about the things that we enjoyed on earth. That's what it's all about, isn't it? We're here today to celebrate Jesus and what he has meant to each one of us. Helen Keller was blind almost her entire life. And Helen Keller said before she died, she said to one of her caretakers, if I had my life to live over again, I would choose to be blind, because when I die, the first face I ever will see is the face of Jesus. Amen. And one of these days, as Bishop Foster said when he was here, one of these days, we'll cross that line of worlds. Our part of the tapestry will be finished, but we'll be in another world that's perfect. That's our world that's coming. Father, thank you today for your goodness, your blessings, your mercies upon each one here today, upon this church, on those who couldn't be here today. Now would you bless us as we leave this place? And if there's someone here that needs to pray, may they find their way to this altar and talk to you about the need of their heart. We pray in the name of Christ. Amen. Pastor Aaron.